Uh, Somewhere between 1 week and 2 months. Depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was something like each phase tech check took roughly a month, something along those lines. Um, but yeah, I knew telling someone the other day. I knew people in my class who did like two cross countries and then took their face check. Um, they knew enough to pass. Um, but then I heard them tell me stories about the solo cross countries they did, and I could tell even then they weren't quite ready for those solo phase checks. So, um, yeah, cross country time super valuable. Don't feel like you're wasting any time. It's kind of like soloing here at Torrance. It's not enough just to be able to do decent landings most of the time. You have to be able to communicate with ATC consistently, not just on the stuff that you're expecting, but some of the things that you're not expecting. And the only way you can get familiar with that is to have it come up every once in a while. Um, yeah, you won't know what resume have means if you've never come across that, if you're on your solo. So yeah, three components, getting your ground knowledge good, being able to do a manual paper nav log with performance calculations, um, being able to spot airports and being able to divert. So that's another important aspect of your cross country phase check. The first few you'll just kind of go to a place, experience it, go back. But then you'll have to start diverting to different airports because that's basically what your face check is. Your face check, you don't go in a cross country. What you do is you go up, you prepare for a cross country to a place, and then you pretend like you're going there, and then your CFI says, "Oh, my tummy hurts. I need to go down. I need to land somewhere now," and you determine what's the closest airport, find that, get the ATIS, um, contact them, plan your descent, and get down on the ground. Um, Sometimes you'll be asked, some people, they'll have you do it without GPS. Like your screens will be gone and you have to figure out where you are and orient yourself and get down to that airport. Um, Others are a little bit easier where you'll be on with flight following and say, "Hey, we actually want to change your destination to Fullerton." And they'll say, "Okay, let me know when you have ATIS for Fullerton." You can get vectors away from there. You can use all your resources, but so pre-flight planning, nav logs, being able to divert to an airport, and being able to hear and understand ATC instructions and not drop any comms. Those are basically what you're being graded on for your cross-country solo. Essentially, could you go on a cross-country by yourself and divert to another airport without becoming a hazard to other people? Little higher standards than the regular solo. Okay, let's start the day off with a little bit of an emergency. Okay, we're still at Torrance, doing a morning solo flight. You're about to take off for a nice morning traffic pattern by yourself. You've completed your run-up with no issues, so you decide to hold short of 29er left for takeoff. After tower clears you for takeoff, you clear final, line up on the runway, set power and begin rolling down the runway. As you accelerate, you glance down to ensure your airspeed is alive and your engine gauges are all green. You notice RPM is at 4850. You try to push the throttle lever forward a little bit more, but it's already all the way forward. What do you do? Okay, speak up, please.
Full power by braking.
Yeah, we all agree with that. Anyone have a different answer? A devil's advocate answer?
It's close enough to 5,000 that it gives me a little bit of pause.
Okay. Yeah, I don't quite disagree with that. What about the setting? Does the setting matter? Like the rest of this stuff? We're on 29er left. That means we have 2,000 feet less of runway to stop.
Yeah, I feel like that maybe solidifies going to neutral and into brakes next.
When do you what do you brief? Does everyone brief a scenario like this in their takeoff briefing? Yeah. So what does your briefing say?
We don't hit 5,000. Throttle line. The brakes says.
Yeah. Based on your experience, how quickly do like how quickly does the plane usually get up to 5,000 RPMs?
Instantly.
Yeah, couple seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, I don't know. So you should be able to have plenty of runway to land on. Or plenty of runway to stop on. So it's important to get that done right away, but yeah, maybe see what they say. This situation will definitely happen to you in your time in aviation. It hasn't happened to me yet, but it does happen regularly enough. As you fly more, you'll begin to hear the plane isn't getting full power without even looking at the RPM. It's kind of the same way that you can tell if you're descending or climbing when you're supposed to be level based on the pitch of the engine. Have you kind of started to notice that? Yeah, it's the same type of thing. So it's important that you pick an RPM you're comfortable flying with in the sling. We're never going to get 5,800. Ask your CFI what their minimum RPM setting is. For most, 4,900 is the bare minimum. You could still take off below that, but if you're not getting full RPMs at the beginning, there could be some other problems happening with the plane. Maybe your throttle is sticky and that's why it's not going all the way. Maybe it'll get stuck in a different position. Maybe there's something blocking the intake. Maybe our fuel pumps aren't working as well as they should, or the injectors are dirty or blocked. Maybe only half of our spark plugs are firing. There could be a lot of different reasons for why we're not getting full RPMs. We brief 5,000. I will admit, even though I'm being recorded, I have taken off at 4,990 before. But yeah, certainly 4,900 would be a spot where I would start braking. If I were here in a school, this was when I had to get cross country. and there would be no maintenance or anyone to check that out. So we just monitored everything and kept going with that. Had to do with the density altitude. But here, it's really important that you do what you brief. So if you brief that if you don't get 5,000 RPMs or 4,900 RPMs or whatever it is, and you don't get it, you pull power, brake, get off. If you say, you know, if we have a engine failure below 800 feet, we're gonna land straight out. You got to be prepared to do that and not second guess yourself in the air. It's important to brief what you will actually do in that situation, regardless of what you think your CFI or you think your DPE wants to hear. Because I've had feedback from DPEs, secondhand feedback from DPEs of people giving like, oh, if it's under 1,000 feet, we're gonna land straight out because they think that it's supposed to be more conservative. But that's not the safest thing to do at 1,000 feet. It's safer to turn back. So whatever you are going to do, that's what you should be briefing. Positive. Okay, we already talked about this. Best Clyde, yeah. Okay, tell me. Positive limit load factor without flaps. Or G's, negative without flaps. And best glide speed.
72.
Okay. All right. These slides are funny. Right in the middle of night ops, we have medical certificates. Okay. In order to exercise the privileges of a private pilot, you have to have some kind of medical certificate. There's a small exception to that with basic med. But you have to have a current medical certificate. Gliders, recreational pilots, there are ways to fly without having a medical certificate or having had one before, but we need a medical cert. Once you obtain your medical, you still have to comply with 6153. Someone look up 6153, read it out for us.
A, B, and C.
What does it say at the very beginning? Probably who it applies to or something.
Division operations deficiency.
Oh, what does that mean? If you have a medical deficiency, there are prohibitions, there are limits to what you can do. Okay. So what does it say?
Operations that require a medical certificate is operations that do not exceed its operations requiring a medical certificate.
Okay, so what needs a medical certificate?
No person holds a medical certificate under Part 67 may act as pilot in command. While that person knows or has reasons to know of any medical condition that would make the person unable to meet the requirements for the medical certificate necessary to have an operation, or is taking medication, receiving treatment for a medical condition that results in the person being unable to meet the requirements for the medical certificate necessary for pilot operation.
Okay, could someone summarize that for me in plain English?
You know you got problems or taking medicine that gives you problems, don't apply.
Right. Or at the very least, you have to get checked out by an AME and make sure they clear you to fly again.
Does this correlate with 1917?
What does 9117 say?
Alcohol and drug.
Hmm, not directly, no. That's another reason why you wouldn't be able to fly. But this is more talking about I have, I don't know, I have I had a stroke and now I don't have the use of uh my right hand and my right foot very well. So maybe I don't want to go see an AME because I don't want that on there, but you're required to get checked out and be cleared. If you're not cleared, then there are a couple different options for you that aren't super important for you to know right now, but you need to know eventually. You can get a what is it called?
S, right?
Special issuance.
Yes.
Special issuance, and then there's a second one that I'm blanking on right now. But it's essentially saying that yeah, you don't meet this one medical requirement, but I've determined that you're able to fly, you're good to go. There's a special issuance, and then another one is basically saying, so one of them is for if you have an ongoing medical condition. I have a certain type of diabetes, but I say that you're good to go, and you have to get checked every once in a while. Then there's another medical exemption that you can
So
get. Uh,
Is that
what does SOTA stand for?
statement demonstrated ability?
Statement of demonstrated ability, yeah. So like, let's say you on the 4th of July weekend, you blew up 3 of your fingers, and you can't feel the inside of your hand anymore. Well, you wouldn't qualify for medical. You can get a SOTA, and then they would say, okay, we've determined that you can still operate the throttle, you can still do everything you need to do, you're good to go. SOTAs, you don't need to get checked in every once in a while, but special issuance is like for an ongoing thing. Certain types of diabetes. If you require insulin, then you can't fly at least in most cases. But there are some types where you can, by medication, take care of it, and you are able to fly. But that's one of those types of things that need to be cleared for. Medical certificates are issued after a routine medical exam conducted by a AME, which is a doctor that works with the FAA. A student pilot must obtain a medical certificate prior to solo flight operations. So before you can start your training without a medical and without a pilot certificate, but before you solo, you have to have a student pilot certificate and some kind of medical. So first class medical, let's see, do we have a diagram through here? No, okay. So first class medical, most of us probably got a first class medical. Some choose not to because some AMEs charge a little bit more for first class medical. In order to get in order to exercise the privileges of an ATP, you have to have a first class medical. Who knows what an ATP is? Yeah. So if you want to work in a 121 operation, aka airlines, passenger airlines, cargo operations, UPS, then you need to have a first class medical certificate. If you're under 40, the first class privileges last for 12 calendar months. So if I got my medical today, July 8th, 2025, is that the year today? Okay. July 8th, 2025, when would my first class medical privileges expire? What day? I am under 40. 31st, 30 days, September, April,
Yeah.
June, and November, 31st. Yeah, July 31st, 2026. And if you're over 40, that's 6 calendar months. There are more details to this, but we'll keep going for now. If you get a second class medical, you need to perform any commercial operations. Little asterisk on that. Any commercial operations, like pipeline, patrol, 135, cargo, or 91 operations, anything where you are acting commercially, you need to have a second class medical, and that's good for 12 months. Flight instructors are not required to have a second class medical because they are technically not doing a commercial operation. They are not acting commercially. They're not transporting people or property for hire. What they're doing is just teaching in a plane. So it's a little bit different. So flight instructors are only required to have a third class medical. 121 needs a first class. 135 needs second class. And flight instructors, private pilots, they need to have a third class medical. Yeah, you need a third class medical in order to perform solo flight as a student, act as PIC with a PPL, or really any rating. If I have my commercial rating, I can't fly commercially with a third class rating, but I can exercise my private pilot privileges with a third class medical, which is what I'm doing right now. If you are over 40, your third class medical lasts 24 calendar months. And if you're under 40, it's 60 calendar months. So roughly 5 years. Okay, I'm gonna find a chart because it makes it a lot easier.
There's one on the ECF.
There, yeah, I don't like that one very much. Let me just search for it and see what we come up with. Uh, this works pretty good. Okay, so this is what the chart looks like under 40. So it's a little bit misleading what the slides were saying because it leaves out some information. Your first class medical doesn't expire after 12 calendar months. Your medical certificate doesn't expire after 12 calendar months. What happens is if you get a first class medical and you're under 40, your medical certificate is good for 60 calendar months, but your privileges fall away after time. So if you're under 40 and you get your first class medical, you can truthfully say that you have your first class medical certificate valid for 60 months. However, your privileges to operate under first class go away after 12 calendar months. This is a little bit off. The 12 should be over here. The 24 should be over there. Yeah, so you got 12 months with your first class. Then you have, after your first class, it immediately goes to third class for the remainder. So I got my first class medical in May of 2023, I believe. So that would be what? End of May 2026. Or sorry, end of May 2028. My third class medical privileges will expire. My first class medical privileges expired last May. If you get a second class medical, that's good for a full 12 months as well. And then it goes to third class. And if you get your third class, it's just third class all the way through. Does that make sense? Yeah, your medical certificate, if you're under 40, is good for 60 calendar months. If you get a first class, it goes from first class to third. You get a second class, it goes from second class to third privileges. And if you get a third class, it just stays third class all the way. Over 40, little bit different. Once I am over 40, I'll get my first class medical, and that I'll be able to use that for 121 operations for 6 calendar months. And then after 6 calendar months, I no longer have first class privileges. I only have second class and third class privileges. So if I'm at an airline and I'm over 40, I gotta get a new medical every 6 months. If you get second class, instead of being first and then to second, it just goes straight to second for a full year. And third class goes all the way through like that. I think it's a bit simpler if you look at this. The only thing I don't like about this is these numbers should be moved over a bit. So it should be 12 months here, 24 months there, but it's correct over here. Any questions on this? Someone once asked, what if you get your first class medical the day before you turn 40? What happens then? Do you have it for 12 months or 6 months? And the answer is you have it for 12 months. As long as you get it when you're under 40, it doesn't matter if you turn 40 in that time period, you have it for 12 months. So yeah, to recap real quick, under 40, your medical certificate lasts 60 months. Over 40, it lasts for 24 months. If you have a first class under 40, it lasts for 12 and then goes to third. If you're over 40, lasts for 6 and then goes to second and third, and so on and so forth. Are we going to talk about basic med? No. All right, I'm going to talk about basic med real quick. Who knows what basic med is? Yeah? All right, who wants to tell me what basic med is? Michael?
Yeah, for like pilots who don't want to fly professionally on and they don't want to get medical, so they just have to get like a physical every year. That basic med stays with them forever.
Forever, so there's nothing that they have to do to keep it.
The physical.
They have to get a physical. They also have to do some online
It's an
like
online course
courses.
So the online course is, I believe, every 42 calendar month, and the physical is every 24 calendar. Unless I have them
I think
flipped.
they're both 24. But there's an easy way to look that up. In general, all I want you to know is that in order to get basic med, what you need to have is you need to have had a real FAA medical at some point. I believe
July 14th,
after
2006.
after 2006, your medical would have expired. Yeah. Yeah, you need to have had a medical after 2006, and you also couldn't have had your medical taken away from you. So if you had your medical revoked, you can't get basic med. If you never had a medical, you can't get basic med. If your last medical was in 1998, you can't get basic med. But it's kind of a loophole that they invented when all of the like World War II and Korea and Vietnam pilots started getting too old to pass their medical. So they invented basic med with lighter standards so that they and their friends could keep flying. Standards pretty lax.
Yeah, it's a good for you. But, you know.
Yeah. Huh?
Since the physical is 48 months and then the online vet course is 24 months.
Yeah, 48 and 24. Okay, that sounds right. And the other thing is you need to have a valid driver's license. That's how they know your eyes are good. But driver's license lasts like 10 years.
So not even just like.
It's got to be a US driver's license, yeah. Going from night ops to medicals to motion sickness. So how many of you have done unusual attitudes yet? Couple of, we did unusual attitudes, didn't we? Okay. How did that make you feel? Tell me about your experience with unusual attitudes. You, I'm not talking about motion sickness. Like, what was it like for you?
Like interesting because like you're down.
Yeah, did you feel like when you recovered and you were nose down and banked 70 degrees, did you feel like you were doing that when you had your eyes closed? No. We get most of our sensory information from our eyes. Our position information comes from our eyes. We also have a sense of balance, which comes from our inner ear. It's called your vestibular system, sinuses, inner ear, it's all connected. And then a little bit you get from like your skin and like the sensation of gravity and stuff for spatial awareness. But your eyes are doing all the heavy lifting. And when your eyes go away, you close your eyes, your body is in conflict with your vestibular system kind of lies to you and gives you incorrect information as to where you are. Motion sickness, it's kind of the same thing. Your eyes are open, but you're feeling something that doesn't match with what your eyes are seeing. So if you're in the back of a car and you're on your phone and it doesn't look like you're moving, so when you start moving right, left, slow down, speed up, that's in conflict. What you're feeling is in conflict with what you're seeing. So that's what motion sickness is. Um, you, it looks like you're going straight, but really you're pulling G's or you're over to the right. To combat motion sickness, lie straight and level. Increase cool airflow. In my passenger briefing, I say don't touch anything, but the one thing they can touch as much as they want is their own air vents. Blow it in your face. That will help with motion sickness. If you can't fight the motion sickness, have something to Ralph into. Hopefully something you can tie up. People have thrown up in planes without anything to throw up into, and it sucks. So if you bring a passenger, once you get your PPL, just maybe don't advertise it so much, but at least have something in there. Make sure you have something if they've never flown before. And the other thing that I'm glad they brought up, it's not always brought up, have your passenger put their hands on the controls so they can feel what's going on. They're not going to be inputting on the controls, but have them put their feet up on the rudders, have them touch the control stick with their hand so they can feel as they're turning left, turning right. I actually get a little bit car sick. I don't get air sick super bad. Only if I'm doing like loops and barrel rolls, I'll get sick from that. But I get car sick pretty easily, but I never get car sick when I'm driving. And it's the same sort of concept. If you have a passenger, have them put the controls, make them feel like they're inputting it, and that can help. And also be ready to divert somewhere. They're not feeling well, and you were planning on going somewhere. It's better just to turn around and end the flight than to yeah, be on your way to your cross country and have to fly there with hot vomit and ruined clothes, and then you have to go into the FBO, and it'd be a whole hassle. So just go divert, turn back around. And actually, I would suggest also if you're taking a passenger who's never flown before on a cross country, don't go straight to the cross country. Go to the practice area first and just kind of show, oh, this is what our practice area looks like. And there's the golf course and there's the horseshoe. There's Catalina. Isn't that beautiful? And see if they get airsick when you're close to the airport. And that way you can make a much easier diversion rather than being 30 miles out and having to go back. Where does carbon monoxide poisoning come from? Switching topics again.
Would it come from our own engine, the exhaust steam?
Yeah. Yeah. Carbon monoxide comes out of our exhaust, but why would our exhaust isn't in the plane? Why would we get carbon monoxide in our plane?
We have the heater on,
Okay. Talk more.
so our cabin heat draws heat from like our exhaust, so
Mhm.
that's how we like get warm. But then there might be a,
It draws heat from our exhaust, so it
Wait.
comes out of the exhaust
it
pipe.
doesn't come out of the exhaust pipe, but
Okay.
it draws the heat.
How does it do that?
Oh,
All right, let's talk about it. Oh, it's such beautiful drawings. So you can actually see this. Take a look at this next time you pre-flight. Just you can see where the exhaust pipe is and then follow that around. And you can also see on like the firewall. So like if this is like the back side of the cowling and we have like our fuse box and we have our rectifier regulator over here. We have our fuel pumps over here. You can kind of picture this where I'm talking about. There's also a little hole with a valve, and that's where our heat comes in. And if you follow that, you'll see what I'm about to draw. So basically, if this is our exhaust pipe, and we have carbon monoxide in there. What we have around that is basically a shroud like this, which wraps around our exhaust. Not good at drawing three-dimensionally, I apologize. Maybe like that. Whatever. I think you get what I'm trying to do. So we have our carbon monoxide going out our tailpipe, and then we have fresh air intake coming in through here. Fresh air goes around here. Fresh air is coming in here, and then comes out. I don't know if it's on the top or the bottom or whatever, but then that fresh air comes out of a hole, which like goes into this thing here. Not to scale, but that's the concept. So this, can anyone tell me, anyone notice about what our exhaust gas temperature is? You see it every day, but it's easy to ignore. Like when we're doing the run up, we have those EGT sensors, like the top left corner of the screen. Anyone notice about what temperature they're saying? 100? No, several hundred. Like it can be even over 1,000. So like, let's say 900 degrees. Oh, sorry, not this. So this is super hot. It radiates heat out to the colder air. It picks up some of that heat and then goes into the cabin. even if the cabin heat is closed, some of that can still leak through. So this is all fresh air and it's coming in, no big deal. It gets heated up marginally by this. You would think it would be coming in super hot, but it's barely just touching this super hot pipe. So it doesn't heat up that much. Cars used to be heated this way, way back in the day. Like if you were ever in a super old Volkswagen, like an original Volkswagen Bug, that's how they were heated. Doesn't work very well. But yeah, if this has a little bit of a crack in it, then some of this carbon monoxide can come in and then go through into the cabin. And yeah, that's how we can get carbon monoxide.
Is that the only way we can get carbon monoxide? Or is there another way?
It would have to be some of the exhaust somehow getting into the plane. That's the only
Logical.
practical, logical, expectable way for that to happen. But if there's a crack in the exhaust and somehow that exhaust is getting into the plane, basically the only way that air gets into the plane is through our main vents, which are on the outside, and then through our cabin heat, and then through like cracks in the fuselage. So it would have to go through one of those
The cabin
things.
vents are like in the bottom.
Huh?
Because they're different, right? The cabin heat vents are somewhere else, right? Or are they up?
I actually don't know where the cabin heat vent is. I know where it comes in, but where it comes out, I'm actually not sure. But yeah, that's the only practical way for it to come in. Are you cracking your knuckles or do you have any questions?
So let's just say, you know. We start to get carbon monoxide poisoning. That little indicator there, I know it's a little circle.
Yeah.
What actually happens to it? It just turns color or what?
Yeah. If you read it, it says exactly what'll happen. Dark spot equals danger. So this light area will start to turn dark when it's exposed to carbon monoxide. I haven't actually seen it happen in a plane, so I can't describe what color it is, but it'll turn darker. Make sure that those are valid in your plane. I did notice one that was like it expired in about a couple months that I had to bring up to someone. So make sure they're unexpired. So why is carbon monoxide a problem? Can kill you. That's true. It sneaks up on you. So what do you mean by that?
It's odorless.
It's odorless, okay. So maybe you can't tell. What else?
It ties to your blood cells. It doesn't leave for a long time. Prevents oxygen attachment.
Okay,
It renders your ability to be a proficient pilot.
okay. So I think it might be fair to say that it's not that carbon monoxide is a poison, like if you take arsenic, it's going that itself is going to kill you. It's that carbon monoxide takes up the useful space in your blood cells. So basically, you breathe in oxygen, that oxygen goes into your lungs. Your lungs disperse it into your bloodstream. It attaches to your hemoglobin, your white blood cells. That carries the oxygen to the things that need oxygen, your brains, your eyes, your liver, everything like that. When you get carbon monoxide, and carbon monoxide binds to your blood cells like 300 times, something like that. Does it say here? 200 times more easily, more readily than oxygen does. And once it has bound to it, it doesn't scrub out very quickly. It stays like that. So you can have plenty of oxygen coming in, but that oxygen doesn't have anything to attach to, so it's not going to get to your organs. If you're not getting oxygen to your brain, you're not going to be able to think very well. Yeah, and just getting fresh air doesn't really solve the situation. It'll clear the rest of the carbon monoxide out of the cabin, so it's important to close the cabin heat, open up the vents. Uh, it's really bad, maybe even crack the canopy a little bit. Yeah, they say turn off the heater, open the canopy, find a good place to land. Um, Symptoms vary from person to person, but headache, blurred vision, dizziness, drowsiness, loss of muscle power. You can get blue lips, blue fingernails. Some people feel great. They get giddy. Um, they have a wonderful time. Slurred speech is also a big one. Actually, let me see if I can find the video I like. Here we go. Okay, so this is more to do, this has less to do with carbon monoxide specifically and more to do with hypoxia in general. So there are a few different types of hypoxia. Let me see if I can get this off the top of my head. There's hypoxic hypoxia, it means there's not enough oxygen in the environment. So we're up at altitude or something like that. There's just not enough oxygen in the air for us to absorb it. There is hypemic hypoxia. That means that maybe you don't have enough of those blood cells to carry the oxygen to the bloodstream, to the organs that need it. And that, I guess, would be carbon monoxide poisoning, might be histotoxic, I'm not sure. Anyway, there are a lot of different ways that your body can not get oxygen to the organs that it needs. And this video shows the effects of that. Let's see. I don't want to watch the whole thing, but let me see how much we have left. Okay. Yeah, let's actually watch the whole thing because this is important and I don't think we're going to get to it at some other point. So, Okay, when he said going to black and white and Looney Tunes, I played that over I used this when I was making a lesson plan for CFI. So I watched this video a few times and I didn't know what he was talking about. When he said it's going Looney Tunes, at the end of a Looney Tunes cartoon, they have like the big black dot that like expands like this. And when he said it's going black and white, why would it be going black and white based on what we talked about yesterday? And the eyes.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So eyes and specifically the cones are very oxygen intensive. So he's relying on his rods now. Can't see the Looney Tunes things. He can't see in front of him. He's experiencing a blind spot in real time, and he's getting black and white vision.
Oh,
All right, that's good. You put the light on? Yeah. So I actually counted this time. He told him to put his mask on in one way or another 6 times. 6 times. And he even told him how to do it, and he couldn't do it. For the for all other forms of hypoxia, oxygen is the solution, and you recover from it pretty much right away. Maybe you'll still have a little bit of a headache or something like that, but you'll typically recover right away. Carbon monoxide, the solution is time, really. It takes time for that to get scrubbed out. So it's really important that if you start feeling that, and you suspect carbon monoxide, that you clear that all out really quickly, and then yeah, essentially land as soon as possible and get help to land. You have to know that you're not as sharp, you're not as capable. Maybe shooting an approach if your instrument rated isn't going to be the best thing. You're going to need outside help from maybe ATC.
What's the reactive time of those packers?
Instantaneously is what I understand. Um, yeah, so hypoxia is actually fairly serious. I know I get hypoxic low level. It's not to this extent because never flying that high. But I found myself not being able to think very clearly. I couldn't come up with the words for the things I was looking at. I had to think for about 10 seconds to come up with the word altimeter. So luckily my CFI was doing well, but I found out that my limit is about 11.5, something like that is what we were cruising at. And like they showed, everyone reacts to hypoxia a little bit differently. If you ever go to an air show like Oshkosh, or Sun and Fun, anything like that, oftentimes they'll have a hypoxia chamber. It's a good thing to check it out, see what your hypoxia symptoms are, so you can maybe notice it earlier on. Okay. Let's take a little break. We'll be back at 10:15.
Okay. Is it, Mason? Who's the one? Okay.
I'm not sure.
I think it was Mason. Grandpa. No, he doesn't have a third of them. Are you gonna be teaching the next PPL Ground?
That's
the plan.
But like a student on.
That's the plan.
She'd like tricks it out, so it'll be this act. Listen, what is this? It was,
coming down.
yeah. Dang, what is it? Next was last. Well, because we switched planes.
Mid-August
Switched like
sometime.
So I wasn't sure if they were just gonna put you in.
I believe our last day is July 25th.
Oh,
We get to haze the new class.
yeah.
Yeah.
They were just gonna like.
Absolutely. Leave. Leave now, never come back. Get out.
But don't even time for it.
Depends on demand. So, yeah, this is really just barely big enough of a class.
When I first think, I have like. Things have a relatively small, but your group is gonna be a very small group
Yeah,
compared to, I guess, to normally maybe.
yeah. So I don't know how you guys financed this, but when I was a student and as recently as like maybe 9 months ago, there were two loan operators that gave aviation loans, Meritize and Stratus. Stratus requires like a lot of collateral and cosigners and stuff like that. And Meritize didn't require those things, but there was a little bit of competition in there, right? Then Meritize stopped doing that. They stopped servicing aviation loans, and that left only Stratus, which not everyone could qualify for. And when they qualified for it, they get like obscene interest rates. So that really had an effect on how many people, there's a lot of people were signing up, but not everyone was showing up because they couldn't secure financing that was good enough for them. About a week ago, we finally got Sally Mae. So now we have a second loan provider. Hopefully, the interest rates should be a lot better. Terms are a lot better. It's a student loan, so you can like write some of that stuff off. But hopefully that means we'll have a much larger class come August. So we'll
Sally
see.
May, is that only academic though? Like, does that have to be 141?
No, the school itself qualifies for Sally Mae.
Nice.
In fact, like if you needed a secondary loan in the future at some point, you could apply to Sally Mae and get a second loan. So hopefully we'll have more class, because when I was starting, it was like we'd have a class of 60 people or so. And we'd have
Ground schools.
2 ground schools for each, so 4 ground schools total. And yeah, typically about 30, 35 or so from 0 PPL students. This year, 8. Or this time around, 8. Yeah. So you're one of the elite. You got it in somehow.
You're sitting in the
You're
class.
sitting in the class, bro. Where? You ever think it was weird that I would fill the attendance out without even looking at the like, yep.
Pretty good, cause you guys get more like.
Yeah, it's pros and cons. Pros and cons.
Big problem, you probably get a lot more people asking questions.
Yeah, that's true. Always ask your questions. Don't sit on your questions. Guys don't ask very many.
Each of us are asking for like 3.
Yes. All right. Let's continue on with this. I actually looked ahead to tomorrow, and we're going to be going over hypoxia a little more in depth tomorrow. So we'll leave it there. Everything that we're going over right now, motion sickness, carbon monoxide poisoning, stress, and a few other things that's coming up in the slides. These are all called human factors. So when a DPE or a CFI doing a face check asks you about human factors, these are the types of things they're talking about: stress, fatigue, alcohol. Yeah, I'm safe covers a lot of the human factors. Stress is the body's response to demands being placed on it, physical, emotional demands being placed on it. 2 categories for stress. There's acute and chronic stress. So acute stress is immediate. So the other day, this is kind of funny. The other day I was flying with someone, different PPL student or club student, and we were doing some clearing turns, 4th of July. How many of you saw the like Fantastic Four skywriting on 4th of July? Any of you see that?
I saw a picture.
Yeah, some of you saw it. They're writing the Fantastic Four logo in the air, which is just a 0 with 4 in it, like that. So I'm in the practice area, and my student's doing some clearing turns, and come around like over the horseshoe, looking to the north, and all of a sudden, I don't know there's skywriting going around. All I see is a small white line like this, that all of a sudden keeps growing and growing and growing. And I thought, what happens if you have a head-on collision? If you see a plane coming head on, it'll be a little line that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger coming at you.
Oh my god.
So I thought we were about to have a midair collision of a plane that was going like 300 knots because it was just growing in front of me. And I went, oh shit, pull the power, diving turn out of the way. And afterward, we were like, oh, whew, well, we're safe now. But like both of our hearts were racing. Like, are you good to keep flying? Let's go straight and level for a little while. You know, took a little bit of time, and then it was just like, okay, let's continue. What's going on?
When did you?
It was the smoke.
Oh,
So smoke.
yeah, they're just doing skywriting. So just smoke that started small and became a big line, and I thought it was coming straight at me. So that was my immediate response to a perceived danger, real danger, but a perceived danger. Fight or flight. I flew out of it. I wasn't gonna fight that plane that was coming at me, or I thought was coming at me.
Is there any advisory? Skywriting?
Yeah. I didn't see any NOTAMs out, but apparently there were advisories out there somewhere. But the skywriting was happening, I don't know, 15 miles away or something. I don't know where it was. I think it was past Compton somewhere. But yeah, usually those advisories are for not hitting the plane itself or not flying at that altitude. Not like you might see this from from 20 miles away.
Now you know exactly how fast you can dive and turn.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I did something and not freeze, because that's the other option.
Yeah.
Fight or flight or freeze. Um, yeah, the response in an individual, fight or flight response in an individual, whether the threat is real or in my case, imagined. Chronic fatigue is, or sorry, chronic stress is different. It is cumulative and it's over time. An example of chronic stress would be something like um, I am paying so much for my flight training, or I have these bills for my flight training. I'm using myself as an example. And the weather's been crappy, so we haven't had as many flights, and I can't pay for my bills. And on top of that, my loan is coming due. And my brother just had a baby and their car broke down and he needs money. And it's like all these different factors going on that's just making me stressed in general because of the situation of my life. That's chronic stress. It is a distraction and it can cause you to have lapses in judgment, and your performance falls sharply. Are we going to talk about stress more? No. So acute stress, the solution to that is really just time, getting away from the situation that was scary or stressful. Acute stress could also just be, hey, I'm in my early stages of flight training, or I'm soloing for the first time. Stalls stress me out. This is acute stress. You're going to have acute stress in flight training. You're going to have acute stress in your life from time to time. Chronic stress, however, has a toll over a longer period of time, and you need to handle that on a personal basis. Otherwise, your flight training not only becomes just slightly more dangerous, but your flight training becomes less effective. So if you are stressed because, God forbid, you have a loved one who's in the hospital and just got moved to hospice or something like that, I don't care that this is a accelerated program or, even I have my check ride coming up. It is better just to take time off, deal with what's going on in your life than to push through. I've seen people do that before. I've seen people who, like, my sister has been in the hospital for a while and I'm working, 45 hours a week plus doing flight training, and their training suffers. Um, it's better to take time off to deal with that. Family comes first. If you can't feed yourself, like take some time off and come back to it. It's better to do that all at once than it is to kind of, I don't want to say half-ass your training, because it's not an issue of effort. It's an issue of what you have a capacity for at that time. So chronic fatigue takes a longer solution, or chronic stress, sorry. Fatigue is similar. So fatigue is one of the number one causes of pilot error, and pilot error is the number one cause of all airplane accidents, incidents, and fatalities. Fatigue is no joke. Some of the effects of fatigue include degradation of attention and concentration, impaired coordination, decreased ability to communicate. So in general, you're just not on your game. You aren't able to do the things you're normally able to do because you're not looking forward enough ahead. You're missing stuff. This happens a lot during instrument training. Instrument training is very, very procedural. So it's like, I have to do this, and while I'm doing this, I have to do this other thing and set up for this other thing and set up for this other thing. And you forget stuff that you were doing great a week ago. But the same thing can happen in your PPL training. Get out of the run up and you're about to take off, and your CFI looks over at you and goes like that before you take off because you didn't do your checklist and forgot to turn your ox pump back on. Or you leave ECU back up on when you start the plane instead of turning it off like you're supposed to. You make stupid mistakes. You make errors that you wouldn't normally. So acute fatigue is short term. It happens to everyone. We've all experienced it. So this happens from lack of sleep or just doing a lot of things. So you can get a really good night's sleep, but in your off time, you get your 8 hours of sleep, and then you spend 14 hours studying and flying and preparing, and maybe you run or work out or something, and you're just like, you're exhausting yourself. It's a day-to-day type of thing. The solution for acute fatigue is rest. Just go to bed early that night, get some good food. Don't think about studying for a little bit. Maybe see if you can leave work early if you have a job. Solution for acute fatigue is pretty straightforward. Chronic fatigue is like chronic stress. The solution takes more time. Chronic fatigue is over a long period of time, has psychological roots. Could be an underlying disease, but it doesn't have to be. Continuous high stress levels produce chronic fatigue. So if you are like studying for a phase check or check ride and you don't sleep very much and you're studying all the time, you can get acute fatigue. If you are balancing a job, family, flight training, consistently all the time, you can do a lot in one day. But if you perform at 100% every single day for weeks, months on end, you start to fall into chronic fatigue. Pretty much every pilot in this building who's been here for more than a couple months, and maybe even some of you already, have experienced chronic fatigue. It doesn't even have to just be flight training. You've probably experienced it in your life. Anytime you've worked hard at something for a long time. The solution for chronic fatigue, like chronic stress, is to take a significant amount of time off. Take a week off. Take several days at least. Rest. One good night's sleep isn't going to cut it. And like I said before, with chronic stress, it is better for you to take off an entire week or 2 weeks off where you do not think about aviation, you do not do anything but, spend time with friends and family and take a vacation of some kind, a mental vacation, and then come back to it while you're rested and ready to go, rather than just basically charging your battery up to 20% every night and then maxing out every single day. It's a waste of your training hours, and these are expensive and precious. So it can be, if you have chronic fatigue, it can be dangerous. But hopefully your CFI should be there as a safety net for you. So if you're not performing like you should, your CFI is there to catch you. But more practically speaking, even though you're still gonna land with the wheels on the ground at the end of your flight, that hour and a half might have just been kind of a waste because you're not there. You're not able to absorb the information. It's just been too much. So take this stuff seriously, not just because it could be a danger or a hazard, but because it's just a waste. If you feel yourself burning out, take time off. Dehydration. I'm bad at this one. Dehydration is just a loss of water in the body. You don't have enough water in your body. And we have a pretty much ideal situation that begs for dehydration. In the summer, it gets super hot in the plane. And we're tired, so we're drinking coffee and we're drinking energy drinks and CFIs in particular, but I did this as well as a student. Don't want to drink half a gallon of water right before their flight because they're going to have to pee the entire time. So you stop drinking water a couple hours before your flight because you have a 3-hour cross country to San Luis Obispo, and you don't want to be sitting on your bladder that entire time. But dehydration doesn't just mean like chapped lips, raspy voice. It promotes fatigue. Physical, mental performance is difficult. We're not talking about being lost in the desert type dehydration. That can make your mental performance like completely shut down. We're experiencing versions of this, levels of this. Flying for long periods of time in the summer temperatures and at high altitudes increases dehydration because you lose water more in hot environments and at low altitudes or high altitudes. So drink water. Headaches, cramps, sleepiness, dizziness. I actually experienced this about a week ago. I was dehydrated after a long cross country. It's an instrument cross country, so we were in the plane for almost 6 hours. And I got back and I was so tired that what I did is I got in, I had dinner, I had a beer with my dinner, and then I went to sleep. Beer doesn't hydrate you, by the way. And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up with a headache from dehydration because I only had one beer, it wasn't a hangover. But I was dehydrated, I could tell in the morning. And then for some reason, I decided I'm going to start my day with a cup of coffee instead of water, dehydrate myself further. And I was just sitting on the couch, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my neck and shoulder like seized up, and I got a cramp, and it affected me for like 3 days. Cramps, headaches, sleepiness, dizziness. Yeah, 2 to 4 quarts of water every 24 hours. 4 quarts of water is a gallon of water. So drink water consistently Have some water before you fly. Yeah. Alcohol. Alcohol fucks you up. If you're drunk, you will be impaired. This is pretty straightforward stuff. Consuming alcohol is closely linked to performance deterioration. This is pretty obvious. But in aviation, we make a lot of decisions, even decisions that you're not realizing that you're making. You're constantly making corrections to what you're doing while at the same time listening, while at the same time planning the next thing that you're doing. So you need to make the correct decisions, take appropriate actions at the right time. So having any effect of alcohol is going to be counterproductive to that. Hangovers are very much included. So 9117, which we talked about earlier, 8 hours bottle to throttle, 0.04 BAC is the max. And you can't fly under the influence of alcohol, which includes hangovers. All right, we have a lot of flight instructors here. And flight instructors, like a lot of pilots, like to have a drink every now and again. I'm gonna be really serious with you. If your CFI is talking to you about how they went to bed at 2 because they were at the bar all day, or they were at the bar all night, even though it's like 10 hours, 12 hours later, I wouldn't recommend flying with them. If you don't want to say anything, you can come up with an excuse of some kind. But if you think your CFI hasn't had enough sleep, might be under the influence, might be a little bit hungover, anything like that, do not fly with them at the very least. That's what I'll say. At the very least, don't fly with them that day. I don't care about hurting someone's feelings. It's your life up there. So be cautious about that. 99.9% of the time, that's not going to be the situation, but it could be a situation that you come up against at some point. So don't take that 7 a.m. Monday morning if you know they've been at the bar all night. Don't do drugs, kids. Even the fun ones. I used to be able to have fun, and then I became a pilot, and I'm not allowed to have fun anymore. But the job is so cool that it's
you're
worth
on
it.
drugs.
Yeah, it's like you're on drugs. Exactly. Ugh. Even if they make it federal, there's still gonna be, I'm sure there'll still be restrictions. You just gotta wait till you're 65. Gotta wait till you retire. You can become a super pothead again once you retire. We have, so drugs isn't just smoking weed and flying or doing meth or heroin or any of the scary ones or the fun ones. It's also things like Benadryl, allergy medications. So we have a list. All I did was search for FAA medications list. And you can find these reference guides. So if you're under any prescription or non-prescription medication that you have to take, check it against this medication list. Some of them you can't take at all. Some of them you can take with restrictions, like you have to wait 6 hours, 12 hours, 3 days, something like that before you're allowed to fly again. Not gonna go too deep into this, but if you get hella hay fever in the spring and you need to take medication, go find one on the list that you can take. If you don't know, you can ask an AME and say, hey, I get hay fever or whatever it is. I'm allergic to my cat. I'm sure there are other medications besides allergies, but that's all I'm thinking of. Talk to an AME and see what your options are, and they'll say, hey, you can maybe try this. This is allowed. How many of you scuba dive? Any of you gone scuba diving? No one? No one's gone scuba diving before? You have?
I don't do it,
Well, yeah.
but I've been.
You've been? Man, I wish I was gonna go scuba diving once, and I got there and everything, and I filled out the release. And they said, have you ever been hospitalized? And I was like, yes, sir. What were you hospitalized for? I was like, I punctured my lung when I was in high school.
Oh, my God.
And they were like, "Ugh, yeah, we can't let you go.
Dang, it's brutal. Go
Yeah,
to Mexico.
yeah. I was in Mexico.
Really?
I was in Mexico, and they were like, you said the wrong thing.
Dang.
It's like, dude, that was like 20 years ago, but they wouldn't let me do it.
Did I say?
Um, Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I flipped a go-kart end over end, and it landed on top of me and shoved one of my ribs through my left lung. Ended up in the hospital for like 10 days. And it was my first week of high school. So we started on like a Wednesday, and that weekend I was hospitalized. So one of my friends decided to start a rumor that I died on the operating table and was revived several times. So when I came back, there were lots of crazy rumors. I thought I like, what was it like dying and coming back to life? I was pretty high on medications after that, so I was like, man, you told me I was doing a good job. Anyway, I couldn't scuba dive, and that actually brings up something else. There is such a thing as too much oxygen in your bloodstream, and that can have counter effects as well, just like hypoxia. So if you do something terrifying or exciting, like spin training, and you start hyperventilating, that can have counter effects as well, such as dizziness, lack of concentration, and eventually your muscles can start to spasm and tighten up. This happened to me when I didn't scuba dive because, like I said, I get car sick. I also get a little bit boat sick. So as we're going out over the waves, I'm gonna go snorkeling instead of scuba diving. I'm like trying to control my breathing so I don't get sick, and I'm just, and then I go in and I'm snorkeling, and then all of a sudden I start to like cramp up, and I'm on the boat literally like this, and I had no idea what was going on. I had hyperventilated, and my muscles were spasming from that. I didn't realize that's what happened until I started studying to become a pilot. So again, if you have a passenger who's like nervous, it's not just like motion sickness. They can mess themselves up just by like trying to control their stress. Give them a paper bag, maybe that vomit bag that you brought, breathe into the bag, singing, doing something like that, just anything to regulate their breathing can be good.
Is that why, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but is that why whenever you get into like a pool
Mhm.
and like, does anybody else like feet or like toes start to like cramp up or start like
Yeah.
like they start like, I don't know, like they just get like weird, like
Yeah, you can get like a Charlie horse or
I don't
something.
feel like a chili moment. Like is that from
Well, that's not
no,
what-
but I'm not dehydrated. I drink water. Is it because I'm like, and then like I put my.
I don't know. I mean,
Thanks.
if you're hyper, if you're hyperventilating, that could be. You also get cramps underwater just because your muscles in your small joints are doing things they don't normally do. You don't normally like, I don't know, kind of stand on your tiptoes like that. So it could just be something like that. I don't know. Good question. But for the Michaels out there who scuba dive all the time, you can get the bends, basically. Does everyone know what the bends is? Heard of the bends, maybe? So the bends is a term for basically when you scuba dive and you go very far underwater, there's so much pressure that the nitrogen that's in your blood gets like absorbed, like your blood absorbs more nitrogen and your organs and tissues absorb more nitrogen and you're breathing that compressed air. So you get nitrogen saturated. And then bends is if you don't do a controlled ascent, meaning you like stop every once in a while for a couple minutes, take time to go from high pressure to lower pressure, then that nitrogen can turn into a gas. You get nitrogen bubbles in your bloodstream. Super painful, and bad for you. And even if you scuba dive and you know do your controlled ascent or whatever, maybe you don't need a controlled ascent, you don't get the bends. You can essentially get the bends in the air because instead of going to sea level, now you're going into an even lower pressure environment. So after scuba diving, you have to, with the recommended wait time, if you're flying under 8,000 feet and you didn't need a controlled ascent, you got to wait 12 hours. If you're going over 8,000 feet, or you did have to have a controlled ascent, you have to wait 24 hours. Practically speaking, I just wait 24 hours all the time. Oh, no extra study stuff today. Interesting. Okay, so I guess tomorrow is kind of the similar type stuff. I think it's fairly short again. Maybe we'll have some time left over. Keep working on those nav logs. And if you have any questions, bring them up. I'd love to have a diversion from some of these slides and we can talk about what you're actually studying and what you're actually trying to get down. We'll end class a little bit early today, unless does anyone have any random questions at all? Yes.
In the plane on the G3X, when you're crabbing, there's like that little heading box, like HDG, that says your heading, and then on the dial, it has like a separate heading for like where you're pointing the nose of the plane. Does that make sense so far?
No.
Uh,
So you have a heading bug. So we have this blue thing. The heading bug looks a little bit like a bow tie.
yeah,
And then we have, this is what your actual heading is in the center.
yeah.
Is there another thing you're talking about?
The blue box to the left with the white one.
Yes. So this blue box indicates where your heading bug is. So the left one is where have you bugged your heading? And this one is what is your actual heading? So let's say we're climbing up. We just departed Torrance, and we have heading bugged of 296 or 297, whatever we have runway heading bugged. Here, we have the heading we're actually flying. So maybe we're actually flying 290. Well, that means we have to turn in order to get onto 296. That's all that is. Because you can't really read what the heading bug is very accurately. So we'll just show right there.
That makes sense.
So this is your heading bug. Actual heading. And over here, over here is your course. So your course could either be like a VOR course, or it could be a GPS course. But those are the three things that we got.
And the one, like, the one that's first, is that what you set your course, like your desired course, or is that the way that you're?
That's your desired.
Yeah.
And if you're off your desired course, it will look like that. Cool. All right. See you all tomorrow.
That,
Yeah. How was San Bernardino?
hot.
Yeah, I could have told you that.
So hot. And there was a big shed taken off like right in front of us.
Went surfing on the way.
Yeah.
Mason and I had to do some wake turbulence avoidance.
Yeah,
We had two big vents take off right in front of us.
that's awesome.
So we just were able to deviate around them, take off and get off center.
Thanks, Zach.
You're welcome.
Hello, sir.
Hey, what's there we go. I was trying to remember what the acronym was for these.
Yeah, if you ask me to like rattle off ice flags, it takes me 30 seconds on that time.
Inversion, Coriolis, elevator, flags,
It's second.
false horizon, leans, a autokinesis, graveyard spiral.